Katoa no mai ki te hui o te Kōrau Mātinitini and Economic Committee, ai tēnei rā, tēnā whakamoeho mai ki a au ki teitahi kai tohu manapori rānei, mena ka wihi ki a koe te hui, ai te haurua, ai te tekau kāraka 10:30, te kai timo o te ata. Colleagues, I will just, before we roll into karakia, note that quorum is 9 elected members. We have 12 present in the room today. As we know with legislation, it only counts quorum-wise if you're in the room. So I ask, especially today, to pay special attention in terms of if you are leaving, please do seriously let Democracy Services know. And if any colleagues online, thank you for putting in your apologies, those that have, but if you're able to come in person, that would also be greatly appreciated. Please join me in starting with the karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora. Apologies. I have apologies from Sarah Free for early departure, Liz Kelly online, Councillor Wenera online, Tim Brown absence, and I see Councillor McNulty online, Councillor Panovich online. Are there any further apologies? I see none. E whakakata koutou ana o ki te motini. I move the motion which has been seconded by Councillor Pennant.
I'm voting yes. Thank you.
Councillor Randall, Councillor Young, Councillor Chung. Ko mana, that has carried. Folks, we have a conflict of interest to declare the pecuniary conflict of interest from Pauiwi Hohaia. Did you just want to mention maybe how I'm going to be managing that through the meeting today, or we can talk about it when we come to the item? Pauiwi Kelly.
Can you go on mute? Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. It works better when we all regulate each other. The community regulates each other rather than one chair, so I appreciate that. Confirmation of minutes. E whakataka koutou ana o ki te motini. I move the motion mo wai te tautoko. Deputy Mayor Fern will second. Anaine ke potiti te motini.
I'm voting yes.
Mine.
Kua mana, that is carried. Yep, we got you, Liz. There are no items not on the agenda, and that takes us to item 1.6, public participation. No mai haere mai Danny Webster from Etu Musicians Union. And friends. And friends. Y'all know the drill. If you'd like, you can stand at the podium, or you're welcome to take a seat at the table. Just make sure that your mic is glowing green and...
At the table? Ooh. Now we're cool up here.
Cool. Thanks, Hugo.
All right.
Cool. And you've 10 minutes.
He mihi tuatahi ki ngā mana whenua te rohi nei, kia ake aua, kia taranaki whānui, tēnā koutou. No reira, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Hugo, I'm an organiser with Etu, and I'm also a musician. Well, I'm a DJ, I press buttons, same thing. I make bleeps. And I just wanted to make a few opening remarks before passing it over to Danny and Ari. One of our first, big asks going forward this year is about consolidating an action plan for music, live music, musicians in general in Te Whanganui-a-Tara, and a really big part of that, especially for me, is access to council-owned spaces, public spaces for both rehearsal and performance. So I know it's been an ongoing conversation in the works, but something that we're still really keen to organise and work with you on. Just I think the approach we need to have is not to try to do everything, like every little squash club in the back of, Lyle, we're going to go do parties there, but just to, try to see how we can open it up in an easy way. And the other thing too is I went to a gig recently at the Begonia House, super beautiful. So just seeing how we can open up public spaces, council spaces for musicians. The other thing too that I want to keep at the forefront of our minds is that what enables musicians and creatives to flourish and to create art are the same conditions that enable workers generally to create art. So at the forefront of the Aotini strategy, just keeping in mind things like public access, public housing, affordable housing, living wages, public transport. These are all essential measures to supporting the musicians and to artists in the community. So those are really the main points that I wanted to hit home. I'll pass it over now to Ari.
Kia ora, everyone. Hugo asked me what I wanted to talk about, and I was like, I could go on a boring rant about like the National Music Centre or something, or I could talk about house party venues, which is what I know a lot about. So I'm going to read an excerpt from Ian Jorgensen's book, The Problem with Music in New Zealand and How to Fix It. DIY venues are essential for touring overseas, especially in the USA. In the USA, the minimum drinking age is 21. This has spawned a massive culture of DIY house shows, since the only way that people under 21 can see shows is seeing them outside of a bar environment. These are not like conventional Kiwi house parties. Shows at DIY houses run just like regular shows with Facebook pages. They have posters, they do online flyers, there are door charges. They might have several bands playing. They might have multiple shows running a month. Although we don't have the same alcohol age limit issue that caused that, what does that place sound like? I heard from King Homeboy that a few years ago, 13 Garrett Street got too rowdy and had to be shut down. Over time, it grew back naturally. Places like this have interchanging eras of like golden ages and dark ages, but spaces like these are really delicate, and they're really important community spaces, but they're like constantly at threat. Places like 13 Garrett Street and whatever Palace, they're just like so beautiful, but what I feel has been difficult to communicate about these community-driven spaces is that policy and law is actually one of the main impediments to the expansion of the arts and cultural scene. I've had plenty of conversations about house party venues with people who know more about them than me. The key issues are urban sprawl. That's one of the main things that people bring up. Those kinds of like sprawled out communities don't lead to the kinds of places you need where you can build DIY venues or art spaces or galleries or whatever. Late night transport. What is happening with late night transport, fam? There's not enough late night bus services, blah, 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 stuff like that. Not even going to talk about the trains. Restrictive zoning with strict enforcement compared to other cities like, say, Berlin or Melbourne. There's a lot of warehouse space around the city that could probably be accessed if they were easier to license as clubs. But yeah, they obviously get shut down. There was a club on the other side of town that was running illegally out of a warehouse, but it got shut down obviously eventually because it was running illegally. But from what I heard, it was a safe space. We should be encouraging spaces like that. Artsy cities usually encourage spaces like that. Liquor licensing, I hate alcohol, but liquor licensing around these venues is a massive grey area, and it's something that we've been calling for policymakers to look at. Well, musicians have been calling for policymakers to look at for a long time. If you read page 21 from Ian Jorgensen's book, he discusses it in more eloquently than I ever could. 320, we in New Zealand, we had $329 million in total live performance revenues for 2023. but we can do better than that. We can do much better than that. There's a lot of space that can be opened up, especially in Wellington. Promoters and creatives in Wellington aren't trying to turn Poneke into Dunedin Part 2, but we do want to see more space activated, and there's so much space that can be activated. Yeah, thank you.
Kia ora. So I'm woefully underprepared. I didn't end up preparing any remarks this morning, but I thought while I've got a captive audience, I'll just workshop some more verses for this song. How's that volume rise? All good? Muso's got a living wage, stoked that you're all on the same page, but there's more to do, so here's some action to bring your plan up to our satisfaction. We know music's more than noise, but that's the only lens employed when some NIMBY's getting sore after they've moved in right next door. On officers' ears alone relying, no evidence of non-compliant is required to stop the show. That approach to noise control has got to go. That's an easy win, that'd help the scene, it's true, but you gotta work on zoning and building standards too, which will take a bit of grind and a fair few different hands. Why not tie it all together in a grand live music plan? By 2030, the scene is thriving, Pornic is really jiving. Indoors, outdoors, all the places, including underutilised council spaces. Yes, all those gorgeous CCO venues, it really is a sin to have them run on corporate models that won't let the locals in. Unless they pay a premium that most just can't afford, and they don't mind seeing a big chunk of their profits sent abroad. Making bank for Ticketmaster, what an absolute disaster. While they're empty weeks and weeks on end, that's a model you surely can't defend. We want to keep on chatting, it's been so nice to meet with officers quite regularly, it's really been a treat. But we shouldn't be exceptional just cause we've made a fuss. So reach out to creatives and engage like you have us. Thank you. Any patai?
Hi, colleagues, any patai? Councillor Wineta?
Thank you. I wasn't sure if you could see me struggling with my mic there. Yeah, could you maybe just explain briefly why it might be important for council officers to go and meet musicians and artists and creatives in their spaces on their own terms at their meetings? Because I think, you know, maybe that point wasn't so clear.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, you know, there's always going to be groups like us who might be very actively engaged and paying a lot of attention to what's going on the council front, but there's also a lot of artists out there who are just getting on with making art. And, you know, I think it's really important for council to be proactively going out and participating in the conversations that are already happening out there in creative communities, not just taking a if we build it, they will come approach, because, of course, you know, it is important to have those opportunities for people to participate in council processes and to draw creatives into those processes however you can. But also, yeah, like I say, just need to be getting out there in the community and having those conversations and participating as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Colleagues, any further patai? I see none. If you have 30 seconds if you'd like to make any lasting remarks, but you don't have to.
Thanks, everyone.
No, Mai, thanks so much for coming in to talk to us today. Really appreciate it.
Got it.
Next, we have Thomas LaHood and Reagan Taylor from Barbarian Productions. No, Mai, the same drill. Welcome, welcome. You can sit at the table or up at the podium. Make sure your microphone has a glowing green light on in front of you.
It's glowing green.
Oh.
Push to talk?
Yes, perfect.
I see, now it's properly glowing. Morena, kia koutou. Ko Thomas Aho. I'm the company manager of Barbarian Productions theatre company.
And tēnā rā tātou mihi ki te whare ki a tātou katoa. Ko Regan Taylor talking wa. I'm Regan Taylor and I'm an independent artist and theatre maker, and I work alongside Barbarian from time to time. Good to see you all.
And just making an apology for Jo Randerson, the artistic director of Barbarian, who would like to have been here today but couldn't, but she has basically scripted what we're going to be saying, so, you know, her presence is felt.
Yes, so we can't improvise.
Yeah.
First of all, we'd like to thank you all for your hard work that has gone into the strategy and for the first 3 years. And personally, it feels awesome to feel the vision and energy emerging from Aotini. And we celebrate what has happened or has been achieved so far. And personally, I'm feeling the benefits of that as we go into Matariki. So down on the waterfront, we have the Matariki celebrations going on. And this is an opportunity where independent artists can come together and we work together. So like with musicians and dancers down in that area. And I think that's a really beautiful thing for a thriving creative community. So yeah, I'm on there from 6:40 to 8, so come down, check it out. It'd be great to see your faces down there amongst all of us, just to keep that collective flow going with Te Aotini and yourselves and us.
Yeah, we can read in the strategy document the aspiration for a city with art around every corner. We really love that phrasing and that idea. That's what our projects have been working to for sort of many years, and we're excited as a contract-funded organisation and personally as the report writer for all of our grants reporting. You know, I love the structure of the values proposition in the Aotini document. I love reporting to those outcomes and measures. They match what we're trying to achieve, and so we're really appreciative of what's been built there. And we just have a few key points that we want to make today. So we love the concept of weaving together in Aotini, and that's what we really want to see strengthened. At the recent hui that was held for council-supported organisations, which Jo was able to come to, but I wasn't, unfortunately, she let me know that the potential for that weaving is becoming really clear, and there was a really strong call from the organisations that were being invited to meet together more regularly. So if the next 3-year section of the plan is really going to succeed, that deep weaving is really going to need to happen. We, as the community, need to know what the visions are earlier, every time earlier, and we really need our visions to be heard to at an early stage, so that we're not doubling up on ideas and visions and things. There are things that happen at the grassroots level, at the ground level, that need to be picked up as soon as they start. Otherwise, they will not flourish. And then we can all work together to be building a thriving sector.
Yeah, and there's so much life and energy in the creative sector, what we call our ecosystem, and it's important to weave what is already happening alongside Te Aotini vision. And we've just come out of another inspiring festival, Kia Mau Festival. Did anyone go see anything at Kia Mau? Yeah, kia ora. So you know the kapai up there, so you know the value of having international acts and domestic acts come through, and that's part of the pump and the heartbeat of what we can do within Wellington. And so how do we join together as independents and artists alongside WCC to have a collective drive with the vision? And speaking as an independent artist, as an independent, I'd love to be invited to those hui. Because I'm part of a long chain of people that create works, not only for sustenance of our own mental health, but for the love of the city and for the love of our craft. And so it'll be easy to do that. And, well, we feel like it's easy to do that, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But we would love to be part of those hui. We could also work with you, as was said earlier, have you come to our place. All it takes is a couple of emails and we put the jug on. We saw some beautifully laid out biscuits. We can do the same thing. For all of you as well.
Yeah, tautoko, what the E2 crew were just saying as well, and that they're sort of speaking to the same point, really. We can help to reach out to independents as an organisation because we have connections with them. A lot of organisations can do that if that's part of the kaupapa that's established. We love monthly breakfast meetings. We host them already for our independent followers and groups. We could host a first one at Vogelmorn happily. And we know that the ecosystem itself is ready for it, so we should collaborate. We offer expert consultation already, and we love doing it. We should be the first option for consultation at any stage, and we can do it for free over a cuppa. So, that's our first point. Weave us in, and weave us in regularly.
Yep, so primarily we all want this to be a thriving creative city. But I'm contracted to Toi Whakaari and other arts institutions, and what I've seen over the years is that many of our new graduates leave Wellington. So we give them all of these skills within our sector, and then they go to Tamaki Makaurau to chase screen and television. And so how can we work together to retain the talent, keep it here? If we keep it here, then people come to us. And that'll be a great thing to do together.
I think that sense of agency for independence is a part of that mix. That's why it's important that independents are included in the vision making and strategy, because mostly the individuals and the fledgling sort of small companies, they're all time poor, they're not really well resourced, so they're not able to kind of come and advocate at this kind of level. So we believe it's our job as a funded company to continue to support the independent sector, and we will continue to do that. And our second request is just to remember the individual artists and the small unfunded companies as a key part of the infrastructure and the ecosystem. Small spaces, as mentioned by the union here, out in neighbourhoods, really do keep the city alive. It's great to see lots of araha going into exciting new venues, but many independent artists won't have the pūtea for hireage. So on the ground, our sector is really great at making a lot out of a little. So the more we can be encouraged and enabled with access to spaces that we can run ourselves, the more we can build an infrastructure that supports artists of all kinds, and not only in the city centre, but out in our own neighbourhoods.
Yeah, and so it was mentioned before by our earlier speakers about the spaces, and how can we as independents be represented in these spaces, and often those operating systems rely on artists being hirers in those new spaces, and funding is scarce.
It's shrinking.
It's shrinking, and the cost of living is high. And we would like to just, seek validation as artists, as bringers of activity to the community and life, and not just venue hirers. That would be a beautiful thing.
So we also noticed that in Aho Whenua that there will be another venues review, and we'd like to understand what the difference is between that venues review and the one that we took part in quite recently, it seems. So we'd love to be a part of a venues review process from the beginning. The future that we want to be a part of is one of resource sharing and working together. And we've put a lot of energy into initiatives like the Green Room, which is a shared resource space for the community. And it's those kinds of collaborative models that we think will actually bear most fruit in the future.
Yeah. So in closing, honestly, thank you. Thank you all for what you've created so far, and thank you for the invitation to weave together. We look forward to working with you, and we've just got some main points here for you to hear today, and that is work with us more closely. We're here and we're ready to partner.
Remember the independence.
Please, let's try and make sure that the venues are accessible.
And focus on bringing the energy together which already exists in the sector, rather than creating something new.
So ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. We want to come back, so we won't do a haka.
Yep. and if you've got like a 5-second pātai.
Yeah.
We do. We have a pātai, Councillor Calvert.
Thank you very much for your presentation. when you talked about vision, where were you what vision were you talking about? The vision and the strategy, or some other vision? It's not a trick question. I'm just interested to understand.
I think the vision that's articulated in the four sections of Aotini. So, you know, a thriving city, pathways for artists. I'm struggling to remember the other ones. Venues, I think. But yeah, the overall overarching purpose articulated in the strategic document is really bang on point for us. I think what we're asking for is making sure that the talk gets walked, and for us that means engagement on a frequent basis and being woven into, as articulated by that purpose statement. We just need to see it actually happening.
It's okay. I'd be keen to catch up for breakfast.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, ngā mihi. We are out of time, but thank you very much for coming to talk to us this morning.
Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora. Right, colleagues, that brings us to the end of public participation, and now on to item 2.1, the proposed joint management of Matai Moana. Kia korua kara puketapu dentist raua ko Holden Hohaia, no mai haere mai. Kei te tepu. He honore noi tēnei kia tuku I te wā kia koe, hei kōrero mō te mahi ngātahi ki te whakahaere a Matai Moana, hei tūpuna maunga no Taranaki whānui.
Kia ora mai tātou. Ka rere atu rā ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. Warunga nā i ngā kaupapa, i ngā āhuatanga o te wā. O te anō rā kia koe te tiamana o tēnei kōmiti. Councillor O'Neill, ka rere atu rā ngā mihi kia koe o te anō rā ki tō tātou nei hine matua o te upoko o te o pōneke. Mea Tori whānau, ka rere atu rā ngā mihi kia koe. O te anō rā ki ngā kaikaunihura katoa, to your acknowledgements on this beautiful morning. As we near Puanga Matariki. I'm a little bit tired this morning because we had a hautapu at 4:30 o'clock. 4:30 o'clock. I was up at 2:30 o'clock to a screaming child, and the hautapu was out in the hut, so I had to move and all those sorts of things. But it's always really nice to be involved in those ceremonies and to hear our reo and to acknowledge those who have passed, and also to acknowledge the new life that has come. And I think the past, the present and the future are a good framing for this conversation that we're having today with respect of Matai Moana, and the conversations that we have been ongoing for a while now with Wellington City Council, the community and the Crown, with respect of how we might get it returned back to the city of Wellington, the descendants of the land and those who will most effectively cherish and care for the whenua. I also want to particularly acknowledge Holden, my whanaunga, and also our other pauiwi, Liz Kelly of Ngāti Toa. With me today is also our legal counsel, Paul Beverley, back. He's here to answer any technical questions that you might have, and I'm sure you probably all know Paul, and he is quite a respected public law expert with deep experience in treaty issues, Reserves Act, Conservation Acts, and dock processes, so he's quite a master in those arts, and has been involved in various co-management models, including the Tupuna Maunga in Auckland and Waikato and Waipa Rivers, Te Awa Tupua in Wanganui, Taranaki Maunga in Taranaki, and te urewera in te urewera. So if there is anyone that knows anything about co-management models and good, effective partnership approaches from a legal perspective, that guy over there is quite well heeled in that regard, and is well respected within the legal circles as well as within Te Ao Māori. I also want to acknowledge the Wellington City Council officers and team who have worked alongside mana whenua in a partnered approach to support and enable the effecting of this opportunity with respect of Matai Moana, Liam Hodgett, Katrina Gaston, Phil Becker. You have an awesome team here at Wellington City Council. And it's been a pleasure to work alongside them, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work alongside them as we progress this kaupapa. As some of you will know, this journey began almost 20 years ago with the signing of our deed of settlement in 2009. That legislation guarantees our right of first refusal over the various land holdings, including more than 70 hectares over a whenua we call Matai Moana, or as others might call it, Watts Peninsula. Some of you will also recall that some 14 years ago, the Honourable Chris Finlayson proposed the establishment of a reserve on the peninsula that would be a place of national significance for current and future generations to enjoy. 7 years ago, Wellington councillors voted to support such a reserve. And 1 year ago, we came full circle, recognising our rights and interests in our ancestral whenua as guaranteed to us under our treaty settlement. As mana whenua, we have chosen to exercise our rights in favour of the city, in favour of the nation, by vesting it in the Department of Conservation. Subject to ministerial support, the land can be transferred from Land Information New Zealand to DOC to be used for cultural and recreation and heritage and all sorts of other purposes and activities, planting, sculptures, all sorts of things that our city have identified and highlighted that they want to see be explored and implemented at Matai Moana. As you know, the purpose of this hui is to discuss and approve the Matai Moana Charitable Trust, the new holding name for the holding name for a new entity that is purpose-built for the governance of the whenua, but also the kaupapa as well. This trust will be established later this year and will carry the legal responsibility for the reserve. It will set a 100-year vision. It will embed the tikanga, the environmental care, the cultural restoration, historic restoration, and other things, planting, etc., across the whenua. It has the responsibility of care for the whenua. The trust's priorities will be to include to develop a reserve management plan, oversee access and ecological restoration of the land, embed the stories, names and cultural markers of the whenua into the landscape, and create pathways for education, volunteering and connection, turning Matai Moana into realising the aspirations that many of our people within the city have for Matai Moana, and also wrangling all of those convergent and divergent views into something that is meaningful. And all I say in terms of those convergent and divergent views is that it is a big space, and there's a space there for all of us. Final ministerial approval is expected within the coming months. Once confirmed, we will announce this milestone and host an on-site hui with councillors before the elections. So our hope is to get something done hopefully around August. From there we can move into action. We will stand up the trust by the year's end and begin the mahi of restoring and activating the whenua. We've sought to seek interim or establishment trustees just so that we can do all the administrative perfunctionary things that are required for a trust, such as bank accounts and all those sorts of things, and as we sort of wait for the ministerial process to go through, and also to run the process around appointing the bona fide trustees who will be responsible for the care of the whenua. In closing, Matai Moana is our tupuna whenua, as we've articulated quite a number of times, and I think the councillors understand that message. It is a living ancestor of significant cultural and spiritual importance to the descendants of Taranaki whānui, but I think it's also it's of significant spiritual and cultural importance to the residents of Wellington, not just us as mana whenua. By working in partnership, we can restore our tupuna to its rightful place in our takiwa, in this place, in our city. And I guess the final call here is the ask to rise to the responsibility and ensure that the voice of Matai Moana is heard for the next 1,000 years. It's not just about the next 5 years or the next 10 years. It's about the next 1,000 years ahead of us, and that's the view that we always bring. We don't believe in the short-term whakaaro. We believe in our mokupuna's mokupuna's mokupuna. And that's the best way to think about things from our perspective. Just in closing, one of the things that I mentioned at my submission to councillors with respect of the annual plan and the funding associated with this was we would come back to councillors with respect of what our contribution would be to the reserve. I have to come back on the 26th and announce that because we've got a meeting on the 23rd of June. We've had to do some reforecasting of our budgets because a lift or two decided to crap itself in one of our buildings, which has just sort of meant that we just need to rephase some things. But our funding, our commitment to funding hasn't changed. It's just that I don't have an approved budget yet. The commitment is still there, but it's not until I have an approved budget that I'm going to announce that. So on the 26th, we'll have that information for councillors. So with that, I might pass it over to Liam to answer all the hard questions.
No mai Liam Hodgetts, and we also have Katrina Gaston, Phil Becker, ki te hore e te korero in the room for other technical questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora tātou councillors, ki te mana whenua, kia koutou. Thanks for that introduction. Kara, this is an officer's opportunity now to present a paper to you which effectively facilitates everything Kara's picked up on. For assurance, the officers have put this together, obviously with Kara and his team. The council's strategic alignment's pretty clear, particularly our community outcomes, of course, with social, environmental, economic wellbeing, resonating really strongly with this proposal. The paper itself seeks endorsement of really three key things: the joint management approach, the establishment of, in principle, the Matai Moana Charitable Trust, and the heads of terms that will form the basis of the management agreement for the future trust deed. It also acknowledges that this is just a step in the process. I think what's the strategic intent of this council, anyone has been clear for some time, for Matai Moana, we still, of course, have to go through the Crown, and as Kara pointed out, it will be with the Minister shortly, pending this conversation today. So for now, I think we believe this is a practical, considered and a future-focused piece of work. We think the mechanisms we're presenting today is a sound one. It helps us transition to the new triennium, but at the same time looks after the interests of the incoming council as well. And I would recommend we'd go to questions of Kara, the team, and Pauiwi Hold'em now.
Deputy Mayor Foon.
Kia ora, e mihi ana Kara. Thank you for coming in to formalise this partnership today. mine is a bit of a technical question. But I was just interested in the governance structure, voting rights, and just around this table, it's not familiar to me that we will be required to be, the reserve management plan approval will be required to be made unanimously. So I was just interested in how that works, and how will it work, and if it is not unanimous, what are the risks or outcomes with that? Kia ora, thank you. I didn't want to call you out for that question, but...
Oh, kia ora. Thank you for the question. So the structure of the trust is the decision-making. There's still a number of details still to work through on the trust deed, but generally the approach is consensus or unanimity around the trust table. For something like the management plan, you'd normally be seeking unanimity around that, and potentially there'd be work with the Department of Conservation and others, but it would come back and it would be a unanimous decision generally.
Councillor Young.
Thank you. So I just have a few questions. First of all, why are there no term limits for the trustees?
That was actually a point of discussion that we had at our last session with respect of the term of each of the members on there. And that's probably a bit of a finer detail that we need to sort of sort through, and probably around one of the reasons why we wanted to sort of get the interim trustees in there to fine-tune the appointment process and also that term period as well. Typically a term is sort of 3, possibly 5 years, and then it's just about how do we facilitate the reappointment process back to through the appointing organisations, because you've got WCC appointing 3 and then Taranaki Whānui appointing 3. So we just wanted to make sure that we've got a nice, clear, robust process that both entities agree to, but also that we don't get into a situation that we've got 6 trustees going on, and then in 5 years' time 6 trustees could possibly go off. So we just want to do that work around fine-tuning the staggering of trustees as well, so that we have that
perhaps
continuity.
there's a little black and white when it says there will be no term limits. I mean, okay,
so we'll fine-tune that.
Thank you. So the second question is, will the trustees be paid?
The hope is that we would pay them. We would establish a budget. The budget would be confirmed by the board, and then they can approve their payment of themselves facilitated through that budget. But yeah, those are some of the things that we'll also need to work through as well, because trustees approving their own payment of honorarium
works brilliantly for them.
It works brilliantly for them. So those are some of the things that we just need to work through to make sure that we've got the right controls and the processes in place. But my expectation is that if you are working or you are participating, providing your skill and leadership and time and effort, that you should be remunerated. And it's the expectation of our trust that the representatives that we appoint would be definitely remunerated.
Okay, so then one totally different thing is, will there be the potential for there to be food outlets on the park, bearing in mind it's going to be a major if it goes ahead, will be a major recreational area. So I'm thinking, because one compares it to Stanley Park in Vancouver, which has 20 restaurants and food carts and all the rest of it. It just seems that would be a way of generating some income as well. I mean, not a great deal of income, but also getting people to
Thank you,
have a
Councillor
longer
Young.
use of it.
Yeah. I think the classification, I think the best way for me to answer that is that the classification that's created for the reserve doesn't prohibit that from happening. Right. So it's enabling of that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have quite a few people on the party list. Strict about how we ask our questions. Councillor Chung.
Great, thanks very much for coming in, much appreciated. You just mentioned about the Portnick not deciding on their level of contribution until the 23rd, to be advised to us on the 26th. That makes me think that this is somewhat premature because
Councillor Chung, question please.
Okay, so do you have any indication of what that might be?
Yes, I do have an indication of what that might be, and it will be shared on the 26th when we come here. And, you know, I think just sort of leaning into the first point raised there, the council itself is actually going through a budget reforecasting process currently right now with respect of reviewing its long-term plan. So it's a regular thing that organisations do on a regular occurrence as new information arises. So the process that we're going through is standard practice. We respect Wellington City Council and their processes. Our hope is that you would respect us and our processes also.
Councillor Abdurrahman.
Kia ora whānau, and thank you for your explanation and for your time. This is probably for Liam. What is the difference between the about to be established entity and CEOs like Zealandia? I just want to understand.
I'm actually not that familiar how Zealandia's been. It's a similar model, yeah, but it's not a council-controlled organisation, though. It's a trust-based model, is it? Yeah.
So basically, a good example would be this is like Zealandia.
As far as understanding it.
Okay.
It's like Zealandia insofar as that there is an element of control from Wellington's, there is an element of a relationship from Wellington City Council to this, but it's different in that it is not a council-controlled organisation. It is its own separate entity, which reflects the partnership that Wellington City Council and Taranaki Whānui have over the whenua. Taranaki Whānui wouldn't be able to enter into a partnership with Wellington City Council over a CCO, for instance, because it is a council-controlled organisation. This is a 50-50 down the line entity.
Councillor Pennant.
Thank you for your great work after a long period of time. Liam, this is a question for you just about how we protect the trust from having cuts to funding just when there's, pressure on budgets.
I might defer to Katrina and Phil on that matter, but I expect as it currently sits, we've got that provisional sum of 750 that's subject to all our budget processes. So I'd expect that council may see it again, but I'll get Katrina and Phil to comment.
So we have provision for changes in the budget for this trust. So this trust, since it is independent, will be able to seek alternative funding. So whether or not that's grants, that's potential revenue streams through minor commercial activity. I suggest if their council is seeking to either reduce that budget, that we work with the trust to find a sustainable financial model for the continued operations of managing Matai Moana.
And if I can just add quickly with respect to our contribution, which we'll disclose on the 26th once I've got it confirmed, what I can say is that it's been locked in for 10 years to match Wellington City Council.
Pauiwi Kelly.
Morena, I didn't hear, I know Deputy Mayor Laurie Foon asked the question, but it wasn't clear. I mean, I wonder if you could just repeat the answer to the voting. Is there a need for a unanimous vote when you vote? I'm just mindful of what happened with Wellington Water, and it would restrict a board if that was there. Is that restriction there on our part or on Taranaki Whānui?
So the unanimous vote for the Reserve Management Plan. The Reserve Management Plan is a statutory document, so the Trust will have to at some point resolve to agree to the reserve management plan. The unanimous decisions on this is to make sure that there is the robust partnership model where we seek to find mechanisms and ways to make sure that both parties are reflected. There are a few decisions that require unanimous, but the reserve management plan is an important one.
Oh, okay. So it's not the day-to-day dealings of the board. It's just certain things that are required.
Yeah, matters of strategic importance, such as the reserve.
Oh, that's good.
Plan. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks a million.
Councillor Randall.
Yes, I just wanted to understand how the amounts that the City Council's proposing to provide the trust was determined. Answered for, a copy of the proposed budget, and there's no proposed budget. So I was wanting the officers to understand why was the amount of $750,000 decided per year, and why not $700,000 or $600,000, or and also why the amount of $2.5 million from the Plymouth Trust. Given there's no actual budget for what it's to be spent on, how was that amount determined?
So the $750K there has been a budget established to determine that amount. With the establishment of the trust and the trust relationship with our PSR team in terms of determining the annual operations, there will be the priorities and the changes to that will be following the establishment of the trust may occur. That $2.5 million from Plymouth Bequest Fund has been an item in our budget since 2018 at least. So that has been anticipated to be used for your reserve upgrades. The specific plans and details around what that looks like haven't been produced yet, but the trust through its reserve management plan and 100-year vision will determine what those priorities are.
Okay, so if there is a budget for the $750,000, why wasn't that provided as part of the Q&A?
Through the chair, so that budget was established in 2018, so we weren't confident in being able to bring that to council as part of your decision making, but that's a guide at this point, noting that the new trust will develop through the management plan how to allocate that budget in more detail.
I will just note to the relevance of today's decision is making a decision about the management plan, not the level of funding that's already been confirmed in a previous decision around the long-term plan. Just to rein in the scope there. Councillor Calvert.
Just to clarify, this is coming to council to ultimately approve. I mean, and this is for Liam. So this is, and even any budget is ultimately up to the council to approve. So this is the committee's making a recommendation to council. Is how I read it? Because surely this is council's responsibility to determine the setup of any new organisation and how we use our resources. So I'm just want some clarification, because it does say, in the papers.
Number 2 in officers' recommendations, recommend to Te Kaikohonihere o Pōneke Council.
Yep. So whatever's passed here, we at council there can be changes, and obviously that will depend. By that stage, we'll understand how much iwi are putting into this. So I just want to clarify that point. I mean, I'm just not expecting a rubber stamping necessarily, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, through you, Madam Chair, if that's okay, I can answer that. Kara, yeah? Well, that's right. I mean, as the Madam Chair's already indicated, you've approved a provisional sum of $750,000 already. This recommendation really by officers based on the approach by Mana Whenua is to adopt the draft term sheet effectively that will set out the joint management agreement and ultimately the trust deed. You're also looking to delegate that decision to the Chief Executive Officer and appoint an interim trustee, which would be the Chief Planning Officer in this instance, for the confirmation of the work in the new triennium. Is that correct?
And can I just clarify, so there's no money coming from government for this? I mean, it's their land, so I'm just...
There was an allocation. There's a residual amount of that original allocation. I think we're down to about approximately $500,000 now. That's being used for the maintenance on the land.
But there's no more money coming back for their land?
The Crown's contribution is the land and that previous amount.
Thank you.
Councillor Abdurrahman.
Just going back to my first question as a follow-up, when it comes to example Zealandia, they do bring annual reports and statement of intent. The same thing for this new entity as well. Okay. What is the council's role beyond receiving the annual report and appointing trustees and giving this side funding? What other roles council play in the new about to established entity?
Council plays a number of roles, including council is proposed to be the operator of the Reserve 2. So our PSR team will be undertaking the works, developing the annual operational plan and collaborating on the management plan and 100-year vision 2. So council will have an ongoing role in supporting and working with this trust and iwi.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Foon.
In terms of partnerships with council and mana whenua on a I want to call it a project, but a regional park like this, is this unique in New Zealand, or are there other models that we've been able to follow? Or how does this sit in the landscape of what's happening in New Zealand?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I might get Paul to answer that. He holds the experience, so certainly there is precedent, but Paul is the expert. So.
Kia ora, through the chair. Yes, there's numerous examples. One of the ones that's probably best known is the Tupuna Maunga Authority in Auckland. So that is a joint entity that is half Auckland councillors, half ngā mana whenua. They are responsible for 14 of the Tupuna Maunga, or volcanic cones in Auckland, and a number of the structures that we have worked through here with Kara and the team are based on that type of approach. So it's a well-tested model. It took effect in 2014. There are numerous other models, particularly over reserves, of partnerships between councils and mana whenua all up and down the country. Very happy to provide more. That's helpful.
And if I could just add to that, within our takiwa, within Wellington, the Wellington metropolitan area, this would probably be the most significant. Mm-hmm. The other reserve management plans are over sort of rugby fields and parks and small sort of isolated reserves. There is a co-management agreement that we have with Regional Council around some lakes, but this by far is, because of the significance of the site, this is huge.
Mm. Kia ora.
Councillor Free.
Yes, thank you. Just further to Councillor Calvert's question on the government's commitment or expense on this project, I have heard that they've spent several million already on preparing the land to be handed over to this new process. Can somebody confirm? I did hear it was several million.
Yes, that's correct. So there has been a number of undertaking by Crown already, including or establishing health and safety works on site. So that's included asbestos removal, that's included managing the trees on site, resurfacing some roadways, or not roads, but access ways. They've also procured a number of reports. So in terms of supporting our future or the joint management and planning approaches, there's been hundreds of thousands of dollars spent in total. I think which budget was it? Was around $4 million, but I'll need to confirm that specifically. Crown also see their contribution as the land, so there'll be no acquisition costs for establishing this reserve.
Thank you.
And just further to that point, Taranaki whānui have, through our own settlement legislation, have expressed to the Crown a continuance of a relationship or a partnership with the relevant government agencies with respect of the site. So whilst this process will end with respect of the control and management agreement coming into this new entity, the relationship with the Crown facilitated through our piece of legislation will still continue, and the nature of the conversation with the Crown will be different. It'll be less about transferring the land into a reserve and into our management, but their continued support of its care and stewardship. So it's probably a soft way of saying they're not off the hook yet.
Right. We just have a clarification to Councillor Calvert's partai earlier around the ability to make amendments at the council level from Steph.
I just wanted to clarify that, as with all committee recommendations, once this goes to council, that you will need to vote down and propose a new motion if you wish to make changes at council. You won't be able to amend it, just to clarify for you. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
That brings us, Councillor Randall.
No, so I'll pick it up in the break, actually. I've got an issue.
Okay. That brings us to the end of the partai list. I just wanted to offer the opportunity for Pauiwi Holden Hohai if you wanted to share any remarks or any closing remarks from the team.
Thank you, Chair. Just one quick comment before we close. I'm really excited about this opportunity because it represents a chance for the council, iwi and the community to explore what treaty partnership looks like at a local level. And that's the really exciting opportunity that this provides us. And it may set a kind of a precedent in a good way for how we move forward into the future as well. So I encourage councillors to support it.
Right, with that we move on to debate mā wai te motini I whakakoutou. Over to Councillor Free.
Thank you, and thank you for all of the information that's been drawn out through the Q&A. Colleagues, I consider this a very exciting proposal. I feel as if we're standing on the cusp of something extremely unique and literally of historical significance for our city and our region. This land is incredibly special, and we, after 10 or more years of trying to get some official status for it, which would allow the public to really fully enjoy it and appreciate it, we are now getting through a process. And I believe it's really incumbent on us to honour this process respectfully and not to put barriers and unnecessary barriers in the way. It is a partnership of trust, and to honour that, I think we need to be respectful, extremely respectful of all parties in the process, and to understand that we're all contributing in our different ways. So, there have been sort of suggestions the government hasn't contributed. I don't think that's at all true. I have heard a figure of around $8 million that they put into this so far. That may or may not be correct, but we've heard today at least $4 million on some parts of it. And, we need to respect the fact that iwi will contribute a wealth of experience and skills to this process as well as financially. And our officers will be contributing their expertise to make this something extremely special. It is an incredibly special piece of land. I had the pleasure of going on HMAS Canberra, and they were talking about coming into the harbour and the amazing headland that they went round. And I was able to tell them that there may be a reserve, a special reserve to Wellington and to the nation. And the history that is there is outlined in our paper, but you don't have to know much about history to see that it's full of history, both Maori, European and military history. It is a piece of landscape that's visible to all of Wellington. So we talked about Mokapuna's Mokapuna. Well, two of my Mokapuna's Mokapuna live in Eastbourne, and when they look out of their window, they can see this headland as well. And I know from the northern suburbs, you can actually see this incredibly special part of Wellington. From everywhere in Wellington, it is a prominent landmark. And to think that we are actually going to celebrate that and to be able to dig into the specialness of it and make it more accessible than it already is I don't see how we can actually turn down this opportunity to keep going on this process. But as the chair has pointed out, today's little part of this process is to improve, in principle, the agreement around the management of how it will be managed. So as you can see in the paper, we are looking at setting up or being part of the Matai Moana Charitable Trust, which will manage this land with a 100-year vision. I actually do wonder if that vision is long enough, but for this time being 100 years, I mean, it could well be a 500-year vision, to be really honest. Yes, I think it's been well detailed in the Q&A exactly what the proposal is. So I won't speak for any longer because I know we'll all probably want to have a bit of a say on this, or many of us will. Just to say, please support this. Please wholeheartedly support this. I think to do, really honestly, I just do ask that everybody wholeheartedly supports this so that we can unlock this incredibly exciting opportunity and historic opportunity, nationally significant opportunity. Thank you.
Kia ora. Te wā paramana wā morning tea time. I will note down I've spotted Councillor Abdurrahman and Chong to speak on the speaking list, and Deputy Mayor Foon. We'll see you back here in 15 minutes. to pull some advice from a couple different teams. I'm just going to hand over to Jennifer Parker to clarify some advice on an issue that was raised earlier in regards to the delegations for this committee.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. I thought it might be helpful actually to just start with the question so that I make sure that I can address exactly the question that was asked, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I guess we're looking at setting up a trust and the council, and the question is, what does this recommendation mean and constitute in terms of what this committee's delegated to do? Because while this committee's focused on reserves, it's not really delegated just to confirm, not delegated the power to set up a trust that resides with council. So just the nature of what the recommendation is.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor. It was really appreciated. Sorry, I was in another meeting doing other stuff at the time. So, so what you're deciding on here is what will be recommended to Council. So all of the focus of this this motion is around recommendation to Council. So you can change what that is at the moment, but this committee doesn't have delegation to set up a trust, but it is within the scope of the committee to decide what are those elements that you're recommending to Council that they consider for that decision.
Okay, so just to confirm, we're having this discussion at this committee to support iwi engagement, among other things, as opposed directly at council, and that's fine. But in the end, it's the council is going to actually go through and make the actual decisions on the trust.
Correct.
Okay.
Questions only limited to Jennifer's advice. Councillor Chung.
Thanks. Just to clarify what you said, so at this stage we should actually, or we could actually suggest things that we want included in here so that we actually ask full council, we bring it up to full council, say, I'd like the answer to these questions.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. So
Okay.
this committee meeting is considering what it wants to recommend that council do. So you've got an opportunity now to amend what these recommendations to council would be. And the same at council, you have the opportunity to consider what came through from the committee and see if you wish to do something different. If you do wish to do something different, as always, please let officers know ahead of time so they can provide the required advice for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Matthews.
Yes, my question was about the next step. And I'm just checking on the prior advice that was given. So this committee can recommend something to council. If council wants to do something different, they send it back to us, or what happens?
So council can make a different decision. The main thing is making sure at that council meeting that you've got the adequate information and advice to make whatever change that is, and that there's no kind of legal or practical impediment to that being different. So I think the advice I'm giving here differs slightly, or is more broad than the advice that that you got earlier. Yeah, this is a correction to that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I see no further partai on this advice, and that brings us back to debate. I will reserve my right as the tautoko seconder. I've just lost the sheet where everybody put their hands up. I think next it was Councillor... maybe Chung? Councillor Chung.
Sorry, in view of this new information, could I be put further down the list while I just sort out what I'm going to say or how I'm going to say it, please?
Okay, I can bump you to the bottom.
Yep, great, thank
Deputy
you.
Mayor Foon.
Through you, Chair, would Councillor Young be able to speak?
Right, we can bump Councillor Young.
Okay, here are my 4.5 sentences. So this project has been bouncing around. I mean, it's one of the first things that I got slightly involved with when I was first elected in 2013, which seems like a lifetime ago. And it was like pass the parcel between different governments, different ministers, different government departments. Last December, Councillor Brown and I went down to see Minister Chris Pink in his role as Minister for land information to implore him to get this thing going. I am a huge supporter of this project. I think Matai Moana, or Watts Peninsula, as I grew up calling it, well, not that I talked about it that much, is a visionary legacy project. And when we're all dead and buried or cremated, or some of us burnt at the stake, this park and joy of generations to come, and I am really excited and delighted that we're making some progress.
Councillor Chong.
Right, I guess that I'm looking at this project and I'm sort of taking I guess a business-focused view on this, and over my many years of business career, I've looked at lots of business cases, and so I'm trying to analyse, what it is that we're getting, what it is that we're actually trying to do, keeping in mind, of course, the reasons for this, and of course, not everything is monetary, but money should always come into these things. So, it seems to me that this decision isn't time urgent, and the reason why I say this, even though we've been working on this now, as I've heard, since 2013, 2018, whatever the year is, I would have liked to have actually seen exactly what each of the partners were actually contributing to this, because I think once we actually understand that, we can actually understand how we should actually make up the management of this. So, for example, if Taranaki Whānau decided that, yes, we will do a 50-50% partnership in this, then that's, of course, very, very easy. So, having equal number of representatives with equal voting powers, that's very simple. But if it's not, if it comes out to be, say, for example, 10%, from Taranaki Whānau and 90% from the council, then should we actually have a different structure? And so are the representatives then, should that actually be different accordingly as well? So I think that because we've been working on this for so long, I find it strange that we haven't actually decided on those things. We haven't actually looked at the information. So it seems to me that we actually need more information on this regarding the structure, not regarding the intent of actually doing this. I'm not questioning that, and I'm not looking at the benefits that come out of it, but I'm just looking at how we actually set this up. And so what I would like to do now, based on Jennifer's comments just now, I would actually like to put something into this before we take it to council to say that we would actually like this more information before we actually make a decision on this, and I'd like to know what the structure was, how many, what percentage, each party was putting in, and some more determination into how the management would actually occur. To me, it just seems a bit loose, and which is okay if both partners actually want it that way, so that it allows them the flexibility. But in any agreement, I would like to see something, a bit more sort of detailed and documented, so that there's no misunderstanding at some other point in time. Thank you.
Councillor Chung, are you moving an amendment pro forma? Do you have the specific changes that you'd like to make?
Yes, I would like to.
Do you have, I believe, and I haven't checked this interpretation, within standing orders, the mover of the motion must specify the changes they wish to make to the officer's recommendations. Do you have those? Do you know what you'd like?
No, I'm doing this right now because I didn't think about this until after Jennifer spoke about it. So if I can actually do this now.
We can take a 5-minute adjournment.
Okay, thanks.
amendment, but I've given him 2 sentences to sum up, I guess, what information he expects for the upcoming decision.
Great, thanks very much, Chair. What I would really like to know before the meeting, before the full council meeting on the 25th, is exactly what share Taranaki whānau are actually contributing to this. Why this is so important to me is that I think that it it affects the makeup of the management system, so that if it comes to be 50-50, then that, of course, is very, very simple. We can just carry on as we've actually planned. But if it's a different percentage, then I think that we should pro-rata it. So I think this is why it's critical for us to have this information beforehand. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Foon.
Sorry, and more keeps coming. It's so exciting. How do I contain my excitement? Okay, kia ora, kia ora. Paragraph 21. Taranaki whānui regard Matai Moana as a tupuna ancestor. Over the King's break, the King's celebration break, I was able to walk over a Matai Moana and reflect on this concept of tupuna. And just to understand and how Te Ao Māori talks about things like rivers and mountains and places as tupuna. And I think that for a Pākehā way of thinking, maybe it can be described of this place has been part of us and our people for a very long time, and we want it to go forward for our next generations for a very long time. And it's summarised well in the beautiful quote from Taranaki whānui in paragraph 21. Matai Moana is a powerful reminder of what's possible when we live in harmony with the land, as our tupuna once did and as our mokopuna deserved to do. And to me, that really summarises what we are about to, commit to our part of this deal today. We are committing to the past, but we're also committing to the future. And as was said, to be the voice of not just 100 years, but the next 1,000. And I also reflect on outside of Tori's office, she's got the wonderful Te Puni, but he is painted with a backdrop of full mighty, they look like kahakatea along the flatlands of Te Aro. And I reflect that our tupuna removed all of those and removed those on the hills. But then later on, some of us had the wisdom to say, why don't we reserve the green belt, our hills, for our next generations? And I think every single one of us here know how valuable that place has become to all of us. So I guess what I'm asking for you to do today is to support this. We've also heard from Paul Beverley that this is not a one-off, this kind of model of doing a meaningful material partnership with iwi. Yes, is being done over the country. So we're not the first to do this, but we might be the first to do this at this scale in our region, but also to demonstrate how well it can be done. So we all signed off sorry, I can't say vision statement, Councillor Young, directional statement, because I know you don't like the word vision. Pōneke, the creative capital where people and nature thrive. And this is ultimately about people and nature thriving. But it's also about our economy thriving, because if we have a regional park that will draw people from all over the rohi and all over the nation and perhaps from all over the world. So I cannot think of any better time to be on council, even though it's been a really hard term. This has got to be one of the biggest things I will be the most proud to sign off. So kia ora, thank you to all of those who have done the mahi on this to get us to this point today.
Kia ora tātou. I will take my speaking spot now as the seconder for this motion, and to pass on, first of all, a warm wave of support from Councillor Brown, who's very supportive of this mihi as well. Firstly, to tēnei te mihi nui ki te Taranaki whānui for their leadership on this issue. They've had a really strong vision for the whenua from the beginning, and I think lots of history buffs will know there is a really interesting history of this specific site of Matai Moana. There's wahitapu, pā sites, we've got a regenerating ngahere, it's rat-free. Moko Moko Kakariki, my favourite bit of wildlife, can be found up there, and it's a historic defence feature as well. Community groups have been caring for this whenua for several decades as well, and this is about council stepping into its role as a treaty partner. This funding is an investment into the public wants for good outcomes of this city. Mana whenua have already invested deeply, both in time, tikanga and care over this part of the land, and it is about a collective responsibility. I've heard the flip side or the challenge and the criticism that why would council have an interest in this? Like, what could council possibly be gaining? And it's that public input, that intergenerational, that 100-year vision that we have an interest in, and it has been a part of our budgets for a really long time. This whenua has layered complex histories of occupation, confiscation, and love with community protection. Our role now, today, in 2025, is to do better than our predecessors and to restore, not extract, to partner and not dictate, and to ensure that the next generations of our grandkids inherit Matai Moana that's thriving, inclusive, and publicly protected. I warmly welcome you to support today's paper and to thank everyone for a really nice debate. Councillor Matthews.
Yes, manawatia matariki. What a special time to be making a special decision. And I want to acknowledge Councillor Free. I texted her to say I really found her comments to open this debate to be very special. And I guess the main thing that I want to express is gratitude. That I am grateful for the gift of this land that will be made, but I am also grateful for the hand that is being extended to us in partnership. And that is very special, and I've said at kind of every point of this decision making about this. I do not think, 5 or 10 years ago, we would have been in the strong position that we are into today to be given the opportunity to enact this partnership. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And I guess I just wanted to kind of touch on the issue of the information that will still come to us about Taranaki Whānui's contribution, because, and I appreciate your comments and your business experience that you bring to the debate, Councillor Chung. However, I guess what history tells me about what has happened in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and in our region, Te Whanganui-a-Tara in particular, is that what this council represents and from a Pākehā perspective, what we have done mainly was take. And that it would take, I think, many, many, many years of even an unequal contribution on our part, us paying more, to get to the point where we could be in a position to ask for 50-50, because what we have already taken. And in no way do any of the redress processes that have taken place actually compensate for land or resources that has been taken and for exploitation that has taken place. So that is why I'm very interested to hear the information that will be provided to us by our partners. However, I don't think it's appropriate for us to demand or ask 50% of anything, and actually what we should take to this conversation is gratitude for the partnership that is being offered to us. And in that, I am taking on Holden's words, poi hohaya, that this is an expression of our treaty partnership. So before that council meeting, it might be good for us to all refresh our memories of the history of this region and what has happened and why this is a positive step forward which I'm very, very grateful for. Ngā mihi.
Councillor Free, right of reply.
Oh, goodness. Thank you for all of that. Look, there's so much to respond to there. I just want to say again that this is an incredibly special part of Wellington. So I came to the eastern suburbs when I was elected and was made incredibly welcome by the people there. But the land here is also special. It's special for all of us. It contains many of our very special beaches. It contains still very special parts of plant life that haven't been yet ruined. It is very beloved by the community as well. And I think that's probably an aspect that hasn't come out so strongly. Councillor O'Neill did touch on it. The community are right behind this. I went to a demonstration from the Victoria University landscape architecture students where they had laid out some of their vision for the whole peninsula, including Matai Moana. You know, they've got ideas. Everyone's got ideas. That's the exciting thing. But what I heard from my community, and there were quite a few people there, was a buzz of excitement that you know, that now we actually will have some standing collectively. The iwi, us and DOC will have actual standing on this land. We will have community consultation. We will be able to do very exciting things there. It's an incredibly special opportunity. I feel deeply privileged to have introduced this paper today, but this is just part of the process. There are going to be many steps in this, but I see this as an opportunity for healing too. So Councillor Matthews, you did touch on that. One of the things people are talking about, along with pest predator free, weed control and community gardens, they're actually talking about an opportunity for traditional medicine, for gardens that feature plants that heal. But I think after the division that was caused through the whole Shelley Bay events, and I won't go into that in great detail, but this is an opportunity for healing on a very, very deep level. And it's just an amazing place for us to be able to support this. I feel that we as councillors, and I think Councillor Young touched on this, we are the ones who are actually privileged to be able to pick this work up and steer it forward over the next few months and hopefully see something to completion. So once again, I do urge you all to support this. I think it would be a very, very good sign if we had a unanimous support for this. And thank you.
E nānei ka potitia te motini. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Could we get a division? Could someone... Councillor Young? Pauiwi Kelly online? Pauiwi Kelly?
It's a yes for me.
Aye.
Getting there.
Ko mana, that is carried. Over to item 2.2, funding approval, Homelessness Coordination Service. No mai, haere mai, please welcome not only Sahai Ogard, Millie Lambis, but also Murray Edridge and Natalie Cleland. No mai, thank you so much for being very patient with us. Natalia, sorry.
Kia ora koutou katoa. This paper essentially, well, since you signed off on the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan on March the 6th, the team and I have been well into delivery mode and working through how and establishing key relationships and agreements with our delivery partners. For the Pillar 2 specifically, we've been working, and I'd like to acknowledge our City Missioner Murray Edridge, Natalia from DCM, Mike Hinton and Puti Kaiaka from He Heringa Kura send their apologies with the celebrations of Matariki. They weren't able to be with us today, but are here in spirit with their support. The work that we've been doing to develop this initiative started right from the get-go, essentially, when we worked through the city safety plan. From the drafting of it, we had conversations with all of our agencies about what might work differently in this space. After the adoption of the plan, we quickly got together with our partners to start the conversations and facilitate discussions of what does that actually look like? What difference could we make together with this opportunity that we have with the backdrop of the city safety plan and wellbeing plan and the concerns that have been raised. And so this service that we've outlined in this paper... This service is outlined in this paper responds to that and articulates our approach and our desired approach to set up a coordination service that works right across those three partners in a very different way, and also looks at how we can fund and establish services that we haven't yet done before, our partners haven't yet managed to do either, that we've heard from the community that we know that is needed to try out on the streets. So the Flexi Fund, for example, and the establishment of the respite beds as well. I won't go into any further detail at this level. I'll hand over to our partners, Murray at the first instance, and then Natalia, and then I'm happy to take any questions. And of course, I want to acknowledge our harm prevention lead, Millie Lambus and Nadia, who've been vital and central to this work as well.
Morena tātou, good morning. Good to be here today. And I've got three things I guess I want to say this morning, but as I was sitting there you would have heard what I heard, which was the rain on the windows. Now for most of us that makes very little difference to our lives, but if you're doing it tough in the city it changes everything. So I'm very aware that as we move into winter months it just accentuates the challenges that we face out there. I don't think I need to tell you how tough life is for the people who are living in our city that are struggling with things. And I had occasion to speak at an event a few weeks ago where we had amazing people from Wellington talking about amazing things in the digital space and the creative space and the mountain biking space. And they described the sort of city that I want to live in. However, my contribution to the evening was, if we're not a compassionate capital, does any of the rest of it really matter? Because actually if we don't attend to the well-being of our citizens, and that's all of our citizens, then I think that undermines everything else we might aspire to do. And the view I have, and you know, this is a social conversation. It's also an economic conversation. It's a generosity conversation, and it's a humanity conversation. Because if we allow the gap between those that have and those that don't have to get too large, we are going to be in strife as a community. Secondly, I want to acknowledge Natalia, my colleague, and Mike, who's not here. You are very fortunate to have significant social agencies working in the city. And I'm not going to talk about myself and my organisation, but my colleague agencies. They're really good agencies. They're doing incredibly difficult work, and they're doing it for very little reward, I've got to say. And that's not a plea for more money, because I'm not going to do that today. But despite that, we know that we're not getting it all right all the time, and we're not picking up everybody who needs to be picked up. And so to move on to the third point, the whole point of this exercise is to coordinate and to connect together the things that already exist. If you had to buy it from scratch, it would be way more expensive. All we're doing is we're utilising the value that exists there and trying to make it better. I want to acknowledge Sahai and David and James and other parts of the council. From my perspective, and I've now sat in my role as City Missioner for 7 years, we have never been as connected as we are today. And that's council, the key agencies together, and focusing on how do we make the most difference when we put our collective capabilities together. Because none of us can do all of it, but we can all do bits of it. And what Sahai has led us through, I think, is a lovely process where the capabilities of each agency, the contribution they make, is valued and connected together in a way that makes sense. So moving forward, you know, we talk about the three key agencies in the community. There's 4 agencies involved in this process, the council being one of those, and I'm very hopeful that actually this coordination process will enable us to be way more effective than we've been to date. Thank you.
Yeah. Natalia, did you want to say a few words?
Kia ora. Yeah, just tautoko what Murray has shared. I think the value that this brings is to highlight where the gaps are within the bigger systems in the structure. We so value Wellington City Council's ongoing care and support and financial investment in all of the Wellingtonian people who call Wellington home, including those who don't have a home. But also acknowledge that you are stepping into a place where you might think actually isn't the central government's responsibility. And we've had those discussions throughout this scoping. What this allows is us to pull really robust data from across the sector with 3 key agencies. We've got a coordinated response, almost like a single voice from our key agencies, the 4, because our council are one of those, to our government partners saying, hey, look, here are the systems, here are the gaps, here are the things that aren't working. So this really creates another more collaborative voice into those spaces. As Murray has shared, we've got good collaboration in the sector already. This will firm that up and make it more able to speak collectively, have a collective voice into the systems that really need to respond. So, yeah, thank you to Council for your consideration of this, and thank you for your support for Wellington's most vulnerable, the people who are out there right now doing it rough. And I really hope that this would be something that you would support going forward.
Matai, Councillor Pennant.
Thank you very much for coming in, and I would have said it was almost dangerous to be sleeping out on the street and I saw a guy with just one blanket over him last night. I've got a question for officers and for you, Natalia and Murray. The funding's only for 1 year. I presume, so this is first of all to the agencies, I presume you want it to continue, you're confident it will be successful and you'd want it to continue?
So we've approached this in principle with the fact that we are standing up an evaluation model whilst we stand up this service so that we can evaluate it from the get-go. And so from a year from now, as we go into discussions around budgets and financial support, we know what works and what doesn't, and then we can essentially support a new way forward. But like the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan, we know that things change and we have to respond to those changing needs as well. And so this allows us the freedom to make those changes when we need to and pivot if we need to as well.
So, and just my other question is for you, Sahai, is so there was $500,000 extra, and most of this will be used for this initiative. You know, my concern is that there might be other things, as you say, pivot, and then this one will get stuck without the necessary funding. Could you respond to that? Which is why I've got that in number 5.
Might bring in Mark Farah because he articulates it better than I do in terms of the opportunities for grants funding in the future under the new strategic way that grants has been allocated.
Kia ora, councillors. So at the grants subcommittee, and then it came to SCE at the last meeting, 12 months of funding was approved for 49 organisations. So that includes the community centres and, you know, DCM and the City Mission. The idea with the new funding framework was that funding was approved for 12 months. The total of that funding is like $4.13 million. And that 12 months funding would give us the opportunity during that year to look at the mix of funding. And of course, part of what was approved in the framework was that 55% of that funding would go to support the safety and wellbeing plan for the city. So there is opportunity in the future to, you know, change the mix of that funding after 12 months. So there is quite a lot of money there, and that includes the 500,000. So there will be opportunities to support that. This application would have come to the May meeting and would have been a one-off grant. So my recommendation would be that we let the project run its course for 12 months. There'll be every opportunity to consider future funding alongside all the other funding. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, may I add that this is also a key pillar in the City Safety Plan. So, and it responds to one of the main themes coming out of the the purpose of the plan. So for it to be, and along with the evaluation that we're setting up alongside it, it's not something that we'd then kind of put to the side. It would be something that we continue to shape and make sure that it has meaningful impact for the future development of the plan.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
This is the world we live in. Most of our funding has these sort of limitations inherent in them. The responsibility we have is to demonstrate the validity of that funding over the next 12 months. Because if it's not the right funding, we should use it for something else. But that's our world. That's.
I just don't think people are going to disappear from the streets after 5 o'clock next year. So sorry, Mark, I'm just curious that we've got so much money. Like, there's always so much social need. So,
Councillor, this is not exactly.
No, I'm just curious why. I know, but basically we've been told there's all this money, and we know that
it was added in the long-term plan.
Yeah, I know, but my point is there's only $500,000 and there's all these other city safety things to be funded. So I just was interested.
So the 4.136 million in the overall social funding package has been committed to those organisations for many years. So in the paper we brought in May, we outline that list of organisations. So that includes community centres, it includes all the social organisations. And that's been that level of funding's committed in the long-term plan, so that is available. The safety money of 500 that was added as an extra is part of that overall funding package. So in 12 months' time, there'll be still grants money as well. So we'll still do the grants rounds, but most of our money goes into these multi-year funding arrangements with organisations, so they know what kind of money they're getting year on year. So that's why when we come to the grants subcommittee with those social recreation fund papers, it tends to be smaller project-based grants, one-off things.
I'll leave that for.
Thank you. I will just note we do have quite a few people on the party list. I will note there were 0 questions submitted through the appropriate Q&A process. We have just debated city safety a number of times over the previous months. So I just get people to reflect on that and whether it's 100% necessary for today's decision. Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. Just a couple of points. And you mentioned about being able to approach government, through this work, and I commend you for that. Do you see an opportunity? Because often, from a council perspective, we need to make sure that we're advocating for our city, and we know this homelessness is a issue caused by central government. So, how do you see you working with this council? And I know you're a group, but actually lifting it up so that when we are talking with government at a senior level, so elected members to government ministers or our senior officers, like our chief executive, engaging with the right level in the government agencies. How do you see this helping that to happen?
I can speak from an officer perspective, but then potentially I'll hand off to our partners as well. So the benefit of this collective approach is that we are able to tap into the data and the knowledge and the experiences of the sector. We consolidate that and provide that up as advice and able to escalate it to our executive leadership. I've done so a couple of times since I started in this role. And then we also, there's a lot of, power in the fact that we are all working along this in the same way and not in different ways. So there's a real advantage in that united voice, trying to respond to a very complicated problem and doing it in a very coordinated way.
Okay. And just my other question is about some of the other agencies, and some aren't quite as, have the same structure as you both all three of you do, and I'm thinking like of ACTA, who are out, giving blankets out and that sort of thing. So, how do you see this sort of being able to help coordinate some of that effort?
Yeah, what I really love about this is it supports already established relationships. So we have hui regularly with a wider sector. I think that you're right. When we sat around the table in the early days, we looked at each other and we said, well, we're not the only ones. There's also the Soup Kitchen who are seeing these people, and Salvation Army in Newtown, but we have already established relationships. I think the value that this brings is that even those organisations can come up to almost a central voice that's representing the wider sector, but to make this work, we couldn't have it sitting with 10 different organisations. Yeah, but it is certainly collaborative and building on existing collaborations that are working.
Okay, so you'll bring them in for their feedback to.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And Councillor Calvert, can I perhaps respond to your first point? Because I often come here and give you wise advice and wise counsel and ask for money and advocate. You get off lightly compared to central government. I get the opportunity because of my role to sit with ministers and to sit with key state officials, and they get a lot harder time than you get from me. I can assure you of that. And actually we get lots of good support from them as well. So.
Councillor Abdurrahman.
First, thank you again for all of you. And this is probably for Sahai. In what ways, how you're going to measure what the success looks like, and especially now giving this to the community, there will be expectation. And how will the council manage reputational risk if the performance, if the expectation you're setting is not met? And that reputational risk is not only for this council, it's also for those agencies. And the amount of money we're putting in, it looks a lot. Yes, it's a lot, but it's not really a lot when you look at the problem that we have. And what plan do you have?
That's a good question. And in terms of, I'll take it in two. So what does success look like? We know that this can't happen overnight in terms of making direct impact. We won't be able to say, when we come to you in September for the next briefing, we're not going to be able to say, we've put this many people into housing, or you've seen a reduction in people on the street by X amount. What we will be able to say is, this is the impact that we're making when we are coordinating our efforts. This is the information that we're gathering around those parts in the cycle that people have fallen through the gaps. This is the kind of tangible impact that we've made in a person's life who's been chronically homeless for the last 10 years, and we've made a little dent in that cycle. And I hope that we'd be able to have more stories like that. And it's that collective view, it's that collective painting of a picture that's so hard to put together so many times. In terms of the wider public perception, I know that the communications plan that we've worked on and that we're working towards putting out there talks about the fact that this is about trying something new. This is about making sure that our coordinated efforts are going somewhere, that there's progress made, and that will take time, but we'll eventually work towards making a different kind of impact on the street, and that it's meaningful. Is there?
Yeah, can I comment? We face reputational risk all the time because of what we do, and I think this initiative helps mitigate that reputational risk for the agencies involved, because despite our best efforts, and I can look at Natalia and say this with confidence, we still miss people. People still fall down the gaps. And the idea of the coordination function, as well as data collection, all the other things we've talked about, is to ensure that there's a safety net and that we don't lose people through the process. And so if we can coordinate the things we do, we can apply the right resources at the right time and ensure that everybody gets what they need, and to the extent that we can. So I think it helps mitigate that risk for all the parties involved.
Partai, Madam Chair. In that regard, just my second question would be, how does this coordination between different agencies in responding to this homelessness, is that kind of a move strategically, or is that just like simply a service enhancement on how you're going to do those things?
Regarding how this, I think it's more this coordination is around
enhancing what key workers are already doing. I think frontline workers have a really tough job, and a lot of that job is just about building trust and trust before they can even get to that practical assistance. By providing this dedicated resource for coordination, it's about bringing all the right people to the table to support the care plans that are already in place, to ensure that we have all the right information. There's so much information held in so many different agencies, and we want to provide a dedicated service to be able to bring that information into a collective space, utilising the collective resources that all these agencies have and the knowledge they have to really progress care plans. And with the practical resources like the Flexi Fund and the respite bed, those practical resources can be strategically utilised to progress care plans that currently are struggling to progress with the current systems they're facing. Does that answer the question?
You've got one more question.
This one is, in what ways does embedding the governance within partner agencies rather than through the traditional council oversight improve or complicate the public accountability? You know how I said, there's going to be reputational issues and expectations, and now interagencies working together. Mm-hmm. Who's going to be accountable if there is something not working, because now the whole thing?
I'll have a go at this one. We're all accountable, and as being a key partner in that. So Murray rightfully said there's 4 agencies, council's one of them, and that shows our collective ownership of this response and our collective accountability. And we'll be doing, and really at a senior level, leaning into finding out where those gaps are and problem solving to make sure that there is progress on any given case or any given system that we're struggling with.
Councillor Chong.
Thanks very much again for coming in. Murray, you know that I hold you in very high esteem, and our chat this morning was very good, thanks. And so I hope you don't think I'm being a bit hard-nosed when I ask the questions, and of course...
Councillor Chung, just get to the question.
I understand, if you're not able to answer them. I guess that, as I mentioned to you this morning, I like to have... I'd like to analyse data and see what is actually happening.
Councillor Chong, can we please refrain to a question? We're running out of time.
So is it possible for you to give me tangible deliveries for what you're going to do? Like, I've read about the things that you're going to do here, and they're quite general. So is it possible to actually even look at saying, okay, Ray, you're walking along Manor Street and Willis Street and you're seeing 18 people there. So I would like you to actually walk along there in a month's time or something and see 12 people there. So is it possible to have is it possible for you to have a target like that this is what you would like to do, even if it's aspirational?
Yeah, well, look, the aspirational target is you walk along there in a month's time and there's nobody there. Now, can we promise that? No, of course we can't. The data collection will get better as a consequence of the coordination, but from my perspective, this is merely an investment decision. You've got the infrastructure there, you've got the asset base there, and exists in the other agencies and in council. This is how do we make best use of the assets we have. Can I guarantee you some success? Can I tell you how many the numbers are going to be reduced by? No. No. Over time, hopefully we might be able to do that, because certainly each of these individuals are known, and they are individuals, and this service will enable us to ensure we've got a way better handle on the response that each individual gets and how that contributes to their well-being and their outcomes ultimately.
Great.
Like, can I answer that question as well? I think one of the outcomes we're expecting to see is a clearer understanding of what the system's gaps are. So whilst we might not have a solution for the 18 people rough sleeping, what we'll be able to have a much better picture of is what's getting in the way. Is it health? Is it housing? Is it that there's not enough one-bedroom houses in Wellington? Is it that people are falling off the social housing wait list? Yes. But that we'll have data and evidence around that from a collective that we can be pushing up and going, sorry, where's central government's response to this? So I think that will be one of the real critical pieces of evidence or outcomes that we get from this coordinated approach.
Great, thank you.
Could I quickly add on to that as well? When we look at those 18 people, the public might not see any outcomes, but actually behind the scenes, through the collective care planning, we might actually have Mr. A has actually progressed in his care plan to get to that next assessment that, you know, is taking years to get to, and that's a huge success. Public facing, might still see him on the street, but behind the scenes,
There'll be a pathway.
those small steps in terms of that care planning is where the success will lie.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
No mai, ngā mihi nui. Thank you so much to all of our partners in this space, and I know this has been a time in development, so I really appreciate it today. Mā wā te mōtini I whakakoutou. Councillor Rogers is going to move the motion.
Kia ora koutou. Yeah, I'll just speak to this one briefly because I feel like a lot of it was traversed through the question and answers that we just had. And I want to pick up on a couple of points, I think, that are important to me in this paper. This paper does not claim that the allocation of funds is going to magically make services or housing appear. It is very clear that the effort we are putting in here is not about providing all of those services, but setting ourselves up for success so that when the funding does become available or the ministers start to listen, we are able to make sure that we are set up for improving and delivering it the most cost-effective way and ultimately at the way that makes the biggest impact. And so while this isn't about solving all of the problems that people are facing today, it is about making sure that every single investment that we are making is made in the most effective way possible to deliver the best results. And so I really want to congratulate everyone who has been working in this space. It was briefly mentioned by the chair, but Natalia, Murray, Mike and the team at He Herangakura, and of course Sahai, Millie and Ngairi as well, who have put a lot of effort into linking everyone together so that we can have a coordinated approach to make sure we are catching more and more people, so less people are falling through the cracks. And most importantly for me as well in that package is the $50,000 that is going towards looking at how we do deliver services, not just during the day, but during the night time as well, to make sure that regardless when people need help, someone at least one person is there to listen to them and try and help them find the support that they need. So I hope that you can support this fantastic paper.
I'm the seconder, but I will reserve my right, and we have Mea Whānau to speak next.
Kia ora. Yes, I just wanted to share an experience that I had. I did a tour with DCM about a week and a half ago, and it really highlighted some important things. Well, first of all, the amazing mahi that they do. So obviously fully support this paper and all the work that's gone into it. And there's just so much we don't see day to day. So I was lucky enough to get to know some of our whānau who are still on the streets and get to know their background. I met a guy named Tane and Jimmy, and it was really lovely. You know, these are our people. These people are part of our whānau, and they suffer from very complex issues that require much more than just a roof over their head or a conversation with DCM or access to Wellington City Mission. We don't get to hear about the success stories where people are successfully put into homes and wraparound services. That happens all the time. What we're trying to do here is deal with those with far more complex issues. They need our help. I also spoke to a couple of people who said, you know, I'm not from Wellington, I'm actually from Auckland. And I'm like, oh, what brings you here? And he actually said, Wellington is known as the place that treats you with compassion and respect. We need help, so that's why we're here. And that's, in a weird way, that's kind of something to be proud of. You know, Wellington City is stepping up and caring for these people when other places are not. It's easy for people to say, oh, you know, homelessness has disappeared. No, it hasn't. It's just moved on to somewhere else. So let's always keep our compassion here. These are people. They're not numbers. They're not KPIs. They are people who need our help and have experienced significant trauma. We are very lucky that we didn't have to go through that. So I encourage everyone to support this paper.
Councillor Pennant.
Thank you very briefly, and Mea Whānau has done a very good job of summarising what we need to be doing. So look, I'm particularly pleased to support this paper because it will be offering after-hours services. I did not have a good night the night I found a guy putting a hammock up on the dotty signs in Manor Street because he'd been kicked out of his emergency accommodation. I went over to the Mission building just to see if we could get somewhere for him to stay. There just isn't enough support afterwards. So that is good. Look, there's been a bit of discussion about my number 5, which was supported by officers. There's a reason that is there. It was very kind of the City Missioner to say, well, you know, it's our world. We live in a world where we don't always know where our funding's coming from. But I do have quite a strong view that government needs to change that model. You know, we need to give security of funding as much as we can. It's just hopeless, and I'm sure all of us have personally experienced this in NGOs, just having a certain amount of funding when you're trying to deal with an extremely complex problem. So, of course, the process will have to be evaluated. Of course, there will be funding or a contest for funding, but I just would like us to see us making some commitment to ongoing funding, because this problem is not going away. And I just think, you know, having been in the inner city all my life, I was on the board of DCM. My parents before that were on when it was called Inner City Ministry. Like, you know, there's just always been problems in the inner city, and so we just need to make an ongoing commitment to funding.
Colleagues, is there any further debate? Councillor Abdurrahman.
I'm also fully support this paper, and thanks to Sahai and all the agencies for trying to work through those things. And I agree this is not a KPI measure, as well as the mayor said. I also think those people, they are like us, they have ambitions, they have dreams. It's not only giving 150K or 250K for agencies and expecting, yeah, try what you can do, and this is what it's going to be. It will continue the same way. No, we should aim, we should plan, we should dream so they can reach their dream one day. We should support them. We should have a target to some extent, or if we can lift from what they currently are. And I don't think so. It's not putting a pressure on the agencies. It's not about putting pressure on those who are already struggling. It's about putting pressure on ourselves, on how we support, on how we fund those agencies and those who are really struggling on the ground. And for some, maybe you heard what it means to be hungry from people telling the story. For some, you might heard from others to know what it means to be not having a healthy home. There are some people, some of us, who have gone through difficulties, what it means to be hungry, to be honest, as well. And it shouldn't be a minimum bar for those people, so they can be just like a Panadol, just staying only for now. We should dream how we can work with the central government, with the current agencies advocating how we can. There is nothing wrong with dreaming how we can eradicate poverty and homelessness in our city. And that is the kind of KPI we should be putting for ourselves. Thank you.
Kia ora mai tātou. Just going to speak briefly to this paper, as it's been quite a steadfast kaupapa of mine over the last almost 6 years. As we know, homelessness is never a one person's individual failure, but it's actually an outcome of systems that were never designed to work for everyone. And this coordination service is a really good step in that direction. Too often our most vulnerable people in our city are left navigating a maze of barriers and disconnected services, everything from getting registered with a doctor to having a home address so you can get benefits to having a warm bed at night. I've had lived experience sitting with people and working with people and trying to get them to navigate these systems, and it's incredibly complex. The stories of people experiencing homelessness aren't so different from our own. Most of us know someone who's had a tough break, and it's often unexpected. A rent hike, a job loss, a relationship ending, a sudden illness or a disability, and the line between a warm bed and a cold street is much more thin than we'd like to admit. So the people that we're talking about here today, they're not an other, they're us, just under different circumstances, and often it's luck. And I'm really, really in support of this partnership with DCM, Te Hehe Rangakura, Wellington City Mission, for the compassion and the advocacy that you bring to Wellington City. They've got experience, decades and decades of experience of doing it well, and this is council backing them to do the job properly. it's really crucial that the service is underway for our city safety plan, and it's about how we move from a reactive place to trying to address root causes, which I know is also a key pillar of our Takaihere agreement and a priority for iwi and Wellington as well. So I thank everybody for a respectful debate, and I'm over to Councillor Rogers for right of reply.
I don't think I need one. I think everything that needs to be said has been.
Colleagues, would anyone like to take any resolutions separately? Or can we just put it to the vote? Yeah, let's put it all to the vote. E naine ka potitia timotini. Ko mana, that has passed. Team. All right, colleagues, that moves us on to item 2.3. We are getting close to the time to break for lunch. I have not ordered lunch because I thought we would be done before now, but we do have quite a few apologies for 1 p.m. I wanted to test the temperature in the room. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, let's do a 5-minute wharipaku break and then back here. We are now on to item 2.3, Aotini 2030 Action Plan, years 4 to 6. No mai Stephen Blackburn, Andrew Darlington, ki te hore e te kōrero. Feel free to take the paper as read. I'm conscious we've had, there is likely to be some pārtai around this.
Kia ora koutou. Stephen Blackburn, Manager of City Events within the Creative Capital team. Apologies from Gisela, who's transiting in Vancouver at present, to not be here. Introducing Andrew Darlington from MSH Consulting, who's been working with us on multiple pieces of work, including the Arts and Culture Grants Framework, which you passed recently, and the Living Wage Review. And he's helped shape this action plan that's in front of you. Aotini 2030 is the Council's long-term strategy for Wellington's arts and creative sectors. The strategy approved by Council in 2021 alongside the first Aotini Action Plan. We reported back on progress against the first action plan in 2023 earlier this year. Aotini 2030 strategy was developed through an extensive collaborative process with the sector and mana whenua. This paper seeks your endorsement of the Aotini years 4 to 6 action plan, part of an overall 10-year strategy. It's been developed to build on the successes of the first 3 years, and we've deliberately changed the approach for this action plan to address some of the issues identified in the first 3 years, where we had some actions that were either not funded or slightly out of scope from the Aotini strategy. We've themed the 3 action plans which we will deliver across the strategy. The first action plan we've themed as laying the foundations, which was the first 3 years. And in the last 3 years, we've been working hard to set many projects in motion, from reframing Council's relationship with the sector, developing a closer relationship and management framework with key funded partners, to resetting the funding framework, to reflect the aims of Aotini within the funding framework, reopening of the Hannah Playhouse, to name just a few, to work alongside other BUs, business units, in the revitalisation of Te Matapihi, the Town Hall, and the wider Tanako precinct. This second action plan has been themed realising the investment. The next 3 years are about successfully following through on the investments Council have made in the first 3 years and ensuring we complete them well. The third action plan, which is in the outlying years of 7 to 10, has been themed growth, and that will challenge us to leverage the investments made that have been to drive the growth in the sector and to deliver on the ultimate aspirations of Aotini 2030. We've simplified the plan to have fewer actions and more flexibility. The first action plan, if you recall, had 78 very detailed actions. This was a lot to keep track of and lacked some flexibility given the nature of things changing over that 3-year period. Some actions, as I mentioned, became slightly irrelevant as the environment changed for the sector, or were not really in scope or funded properly. The sheer number of actions made it hard for partners to identify what was important or how they could work alongside us. In this new action plan, we've identified 19 priority areas of focus. These are framed as descriptions of the end of state we want to see after the 3 years, and to take into account the level of investment available that we have within Council. The areas of focus for years 4 to 6 are of course aligned to each of the strands of Aotini. Ahu tangata, our people, connected, engaged, inclusive, accessible communities. Aho hononga, partnership with mana whenua and Māori. Aho whenua, our places, spaces and venues, our city is alive. And aho mahi, pathways, successful arts and creative sector and careers. We have identified that we need a collaborative implementation approach in order to be successful to reach the goals of 2030. Even though this is the Council's action plan, we can't achieve the desired results alone. We will need to work collaboratively with many partners, both inside council and in the sector, to deliver this action plan. So this will include across business units across council, CCOs, particularly Experience Wellington, and of course Wellington NZ with Venues Wellington sitting within that. Recipients of our multi-year funding or annual stability grants that we've implemented, education institutions that sit within Wellington, and of course central government, arts and culture are an important part of this. Conversations we held to test the plan with some of these organisations reinforced the desire to collaborate and be part of the work. We will be developing a mechanism to engage more deeply with the sector on this work going forward, particularly around setting some stringent KPIs that we can collaboratively deliver to. And this we aim to have in place by early 2026. We will be engaging with delivery partners regularly to identify specific opportunities to collaborate or align work to these priority areas. By describing the end state rather than the specific tasks, it gives us greater flexibility over the 3 years as new opportunities arise or the environment changes during the course of the plan. Reporting against this action plan will be key to demonstrate the success. We intend to build on the reporting we did against the first action plan. We want to continue tracking some of the metrics and sharing the great work that is happening as a result of Aotini and the investments Council have made. We'll also be exploring a set of KPIs in collaboration with the sector, as I mentioned, that are aligned to the action plan so that there is greater rigour around what success looks like and the progress that we are making. The need for this was reinforced by the sector partners we have tested this plan with, and from what you heard earlier this morning, we want to know how we will be measuring the impact of this work with them. In summary, it's important to tell the story of the 3 action plans building upon each other. The years 4 to 6 action plan is a key document to guide not only the Council's work, but the wider sector as we come together in this middle 3 years of a 10-year strategy. We are confident this action plan will let us stand here in 3 years' time and share even greater results than we did at the end of the first action plan, and put us in good place to build growth in the outlying years of Aotini 2030. Open to questions.
Thank you. We have a Pātai Councillor Young. Colleagues, is there any further Pātai? Deputy Mayor Finn.
Yeah, probably just on behalf, just reflecting that there are a few amendments that councillors would like to bring. Do you have any concerns about any of them? Are you comfortable to support them going forward?
I will just correct that it's not support or not support.
Sorry, yeah.
It's advice around.
Advice, yeah.
So as to not bring people into debate.
Yeah. It depends whether they're part of an action plan or whether they're just directives to officers against our existing action plan, because a lot of them we identify as already actually being within the current action plan scope. 1 or 2 maybe not, but it's more about them being directives, so I'm assuming to the officers to explore those things. Yeah.
Can I just add as well, Deputy Mayor, that on the assumption there's no additional funding for any of those amendments, that may result in some other actions we were doing being deprioritised in order to do these ones.
Yeah.
Councillor Abdurrahman.
Which of those amendments that you think are not against the current action plans that might lead into reprioritization in some other current action plans?
So the exploring the feasibility of enabling local artists to have affordable access to CCO venues and report back with options and costings. It's not necessarily something that we're doing a venue strategy and we're doing a review of that. And part of that is actually to look at the affordability of venues and how easy it is for artists to access those. So that's we're either doing it, or if it's something extra, it'll mean that we have to balance it up with the other work that we're doing on venues. So that's an example. Facilitating connection of empty spaces with creatives. we have mechanisms in place to do that at the moment. If we are to do more, then that's obviously an additional piece of work and an additional action that we would need to do on top.
That would definitely require additional resourcing, so we'd have to prioritise it over other things then.
What number is this one? Which one is this? Number.
So that was number 9 I just mentioned. Number 10. So look at a guide for how local artists can navigate council processes, etc. That's obviously an extra piece of work.
There's portions of it we've currently got underway which are specific to community events, but this is broader than just community events, so that part of it is additional work, definitely, yes.
So what this additional work it means for the rest of the actions, because you said prioritization, and what would be, my understanding when you say prioritization means one of them getting, the other one is losing. It's not a win-win. That's my understanding. That means if you're prioritizing this, which one will be impacted, or you're not sure yet?
We haven't had the time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say as is the process for any paper where we propose any amendment to undertake further work, the expectation is that without further funding, it results in deprioritising. So it's something we. Yep, Councillor Young.
I did, Madam Chair, just to say that I did ask a question, which one will be, I do understand, yes, prioritisation happens.
Yes, yeah.
And that's why they explained as well.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Young.
So I'm just interested in the first one about, so number 3, affordable access to CCO venues. So most of our venues are run by Wellington.
Councillor Young, could you speak closer to your mic?
It's my delicate fingers, my dear little voice. Most of our venues are run by Wellington NZ. So the only CCO one, would that be the Hannah Playhouse?
No. In fact, the CCO ones are the other civic spaces. The only one we directly run is the Hannah Playhouse in terms of the operations of it. So that's in relation to venues operated by Wellington NZ, which are the St James, the Opera House, Town Hall, etc.
Okay. So that's what we've been asking about for years, right? Yes. And nothing's ever done about it.
Well, the venues review work is still ongoing.
Okay.
Which aims to make it more accessible.
Thank you.
Councillor Abdirahman.
So in number 3, it's asking access to CCO venues. It's not specifically mentioning which CCO. Does that mean, example, Wellington Zoo, they do have venue. Are you going to be part of, is that your understanding?
Well, I have to admit, Councillor, that wasn't my understanding. I was assuming the ones that are managed by Venues NZ under Wellington NZ.
Okay. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Mā waiti motini I whakataka koutou to Deputy Mayor Foon to move.
So just before starting today, I'd really like to acknowledge Sam Hutchinson, who was the designer, if you like, or the bringer to life of Aotini. And through this process, she really kind of helped set a new engagement way that council operated, and it really brought everybody into the room and everybody together. So I just want to acknowledge that mahi on how we got such a great strategy. I'd also like to acknowledge Tony Huata is no longer with us. This is lovely wahine. She an amazing performer, well known across Pōneke, and has since passed as well. I would like to thank our arts team, particularly Gisela and Stephen, for the mahi going on constantly behind this, and also to our presenters this morning. It really helps having our community, hearing from our community and being in the room. I just want to acknowledge how important being a creative capital has been set by this council, and that once again back to that strategic direction, not strategic vision, Councillor Young. Pōneke, the creative capital where people and nature thrive. So we really made sure we wanted that framing in our statement. We also put being, that our creative capital in number 9 in our priorities in our LTP. And thanks to Mea Whānau, we've also boosted the funding to our communities and Councillor O'Neill and Winera on living wage. And we're really seeing some great results, like just seeing the resident survey. I think, don't quote me on the numbers, 81% are really loving, going to our events. We've got the Matariki celebration happening on the waterfront tonight, so it's very poignant, but also residents really acknowledge the view of Te Ao Māori, and that is those numbers are lifting. We had over 1 million people attend events. We've got big investment going into the town hall, Te Matapihi, City Gallery, and great to see the Hannah revived. And just in our more local organisations, it's great to see Footnote housed, and just going to Kiamo the other night, just a bit of a first in an Indigenous Arts Festival, and that was pretty special. So yeah, just acknowledging all the work that's gone into being here today. And I'm really pleased to be able to be the one to support the next 3 years. And I just also want to acknowledge we do have a few amendments on the table. Thank you for your patience and tolerance for this. But there is a reason why they're there, because we do just want to elevate the work that we're doing to help us as a city better coordinate. And I think that's what we were wanting. As councillors, it is hard to see how we are working with the sector and across all the groups. So really putting in number 6, that present back to council the engagement plan with the sector. We really want to be able to put our hands on our hearts and say, we know that we are communicating with the sector and these are the results we're getting through it. So that is why that amendment is there. And I think from one of our speakers this morning, work with us more. That is something that we are hearing a lot. Also, just back to number 3, opening up the venues for artists. I know that this is a strange one perhaps to have in there, but in 2021 LTP, this was an ask in that LTP that we signed off that we have still not got back in front of us today. So one of the things I've been working on with officers is what would it look like if we had a trial, if there was a 1 week that we could open up an event at an affordable rate so that local artists could use it during that 1 week a year. And so what this is about is just exploring what that might look like. It's about opening up our venues, and that's what we heard from submitters also today. And what we hear.
I'll just draw your attention. We're a bit over time, but
certainly. And then the last one was just the opportunities for the big picture. We really want to make sure we are singing from as loud as we can when we open up Te Matapihi, Te Ngākau, and our City Gallery, that we have got the whole nation looking at us and what we're doing here. So that amendment number 4 is about asking officers to report back to us so we know what the plan is and we know what direction we're taking. Kia ora. Thank you.
Mawai I tautoko, I understand Mea Whānau. Would you like to speak now?
Yep, I just want to give some context to some of my amendments. So thank you to staff for this paper, deeply passionate about this mahi. But after hearing from the sector, from say Kiamo Festival, the Creative Capital Arts Trust and some independent artists, I've proposed some amendments to the substantive. So one is continuing that commitment to living wage, but doing the prep work in advance of the next LTP. So as we saw this time round, it just somehow dropped off and we had to take from another fund. We don't want to do that again. It should be very clear where the living wage funding is coming from. I'm also hearing from the sector that it would be hugely beneficial for the council to do more engagement work. I'm not quite sure what's happened to the quarterly hui, but that it would also benefit from being a little more sector-led as well. We heard that in hearings today. You know, the venue strategy, I know that's been worked on, but it's becoming more and more urgent. So just want to prioritise that. And I've kept in the inclusion of the goals of Aotini being in alignment of our Tākai Here Partnership Agreement and signature events. The wording is There is some wording in that strategy already, but I want to strengthen it because I would like to see some of our signature events like Matariki and Waitangi Day be a bit more led or advised by the Mātaho Aro Nui team, and that, so that can just change over time. But I would also encourage elected members to encourage us to advocate for our arts sector to utilise Te Auaha more as an arts hub. There's a collective of artists building now who want to take it over. It's not one of our projects, but it's certainly something that would benefit us as a city. Kia ora.
I have, apologies, Councillor Pennant.
Thanks. I actually wasn't intending to speak today because we want to get out of here. But Deputy Mayor Foon, I'm just a little bit concerned now that we're being told that we might have to deprioritise some things, and I don't know what they are. I don't know what the implications are. I was going to vote for all of these, and now I'm not sure. So are you able just to say what things you think should be deprioritised to put your things through? And just a thanks to the Mayor for her comments on the Living Wage Fund. Much appreciated publicly. We'll just state that.
Just a procedural point, my attention's been drawn to number 6, direct officers to present back to council. It's my understanding that the intention was to direct officers to report back to committee around the engagement report. Because this has been moved and seconded, we would require leave of the meeting to change it from council to committee. No, we don't. Okay, we're going to leave it as is. And we were back to debate. I'm sorry, I do have Councillor Young next on the list, but I may have just missed a hand before. Was there a hand going up? No, Councillor Young, over to you.
So also, I wasn't going to speak. I was just thinking that if we're going to acknowledge some of our artists who have died, the most outstanding one, of course, is Morris G., who died 4 days ago. An outstanding writer whom our grandchildren will probably read if they can read and write, depending on the education system. So I will not be voting for any of these amendments. I feel that there is too much unknown. I don't know what's going to be deprioritised. I am concerned there wasn't enough time to consider them. I have a thing about last-minute amendments, so it's nothing to do. Some of them I agree with, but I just don't know enough about them, so I will be voting against everything in red.
Is there any further debate? Councillor Abdurrahman.
To be honest, it's just a bit of a difficult one. I can see a merit on this amendment. I will probably voting for them. However, I don't think so. It was we had enough time to digest, and especially officers giving us a good advice on what would be prioritized, because we didn't give them enough time. That's the obvious one. The one I specifically want to speak to and support is number 5, which is the living wage one. And I'm in support of it, but at the same time, I am a bit ashamed, and to be honest, we dropped that ball. And we have in this council a lot of people who advocated for that specific thing, and we are in a position of leading the long-term plan, including me as the current council, and not having that was a bit, to be honest, is something we need to be reflecting. That includes me as well. And the way we passed, living wage becomes controversial because we're getting some money from here, allocating into somewhere else. That shouldn't be the way. And in going forward as well, when we have all those projects for the next 10 years, and at the time when we are arguing 10 years itself is not enough, we need to plan for a longer period of time, not having the lens, the way we look at through that long-term plan, not looking at the living wage, not including into that 10-year plan, shows how sometimes we are a bit, it makes me a bit concerned, to be honest. I'll leave it there, but I'm supporting the rest of them and including that one.
Councillor Calvert and McNulty, we've got you on the list as well.
Thank you. And I think it was one of the public participants who sort of, I think, crystallised a lot of things about we need to do better at weaving things together, and whether that's strategies or actions or whatever, and we've got to make things practical. However, I see all this red, at the last minute, and I have to say there's three things I think about. It could be one, it could be either of the three, or it could be a mixture of the three. First is, this is a sign telling officers, you must try harder, you must do better, because to have all of these things in saying we don't like what's going on and we need to change it, you're sending a signal to the officers that they're not giving effect to the strategy that we set. Alternatively, it could be we don't like what we've decided, so we're going to make some changes on the fly without thinking about the wider implications. Or third, obviously the strong advocates for this policy are the mayor and deputy mayor, and you've basically just dropped the ball, and now you're relying on these last-minute amendments that aren't actually thought through. So I'm not going to be supporting these. I understand the intentions of some of them, but I think there's some bigger issues here that we need to, think about how we are doing this work and actually how we're influencing the work along the way for those who can. So I won't be supporting any of these. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, and I'll only make this reminder once, to be mindful of the relevance to debating the work and the words in front of you, not debating people. And I'm just going to say that once. Otherwise, next time it's following the normal path.
Well, can you just clarify that? Because there was nothing incorrect that I said. So if you've got a particular point
Actually,
about
was
mine.
off the fly was incorrect. We circulated many of these yesterday while you were putting up amendments. So
Yes, I know, but there's still on the fly for something so major.
Order. Yeah, I've reminded you, and actually understanding orders, it is about relevance to the item being debated. Councillor McNulty.
Object to that, because that's got nothing. Everything is about relevance. It's talking about these amendments. So
What would you like to object to?
Well, you're saying that I've just said things. My comments are irrelevant. Is that true?
I am reminding the committee once
That's
in
fine.
regards to relevance and making sure
Are you
debate.
suggesting that my comments are irrelevant to what's in front of us?
I'm restating something that is laid out in standing orders.
So you're not saying my comments are irrelevant.
Not specific to any particular councillors. What the chair is saying is just a reminder in general for all of us, and that is my understanding, and then we can move on from, it's not specific
and that's good to
to
be
you.
made at the start of a debate, not halfway through after somebody's
Yes, the
order.
chair can do basically from time to time at the time they find it convenient, so I think that's my understanding again.
Thank you, everybody. I can safely say I think that information has been received. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I wasn't going to talk, and I know I'm standing between lunch, but this debate perked my ears just a little bit. So look, I think being an effective councillor, you can't be across every single issue of paper in the depth that we'd all like to be. I know that when it comes to housing, you can talk to me about heritage buildings, about Wellington Water. I have great interest and depth in those things. On the arts, I do not. So yes, these amendments have come at a late time without full consideration, but there are councillors around this table that I know have the best interests of the arts sector in their heart and have done the due diligence and haven't just, crawled into the scene or come into it in recent times. They've been following this for years. That includes the deputy mayor, that includes the mayor, that includes Councillor O'Neill. So for when I see these things like this, yes, more time would have been fantastic, but I trust built on a track record of, continued advocacy, that this is coming from a acknowledged and a researched place. In the same way that, if we go back to last week when we were talking about the airport overlay for the airport, Councillor Brown added a lot of value and was able to provide lots of clarity into that debate and challenge some of our preconceptions as an expert. So we have got subject matter experts around the table in different areas. None of us is perfect and across everything, but I have that faith that these amendments have been brought with a degree of calibre, research, knowledge and authenticity, and that's why I'm going to be happy to support them.
Chung.
I'm just not, sorry, I'm not sure whether I can actually ask a question now in view of the last two speakers.
No, but if you would like to, you can ask a question of the mover of the motion, and they might be able to reply and write a reply.
Yep. I'd just like to ask, if this has actually been discussed with council officers, whether it is a big job for them to do these things, or is it something they can do in 30 seconds?
can take that question on note. I will, with the caveat that it is important we do not misrepresent officers' words, but they were asked a similar question during the Q&A in regards to the impact on work program. Yeah. Hi. Right of reply, Deputy Mayor Foon.
Kia ora, councillors, and I just need to say I really appreciate, and I tried to express in all my emails that these were late, and the officers know that I was deeply disappointed last night, but they could not do this after hours. And they could not see us before any earlier. So this is why we have them now. But thank you for your patience and tolerance, because I really try and give it to you when you are moving your amendments. Councillor Chung, we had good debate, good discussion last evening with officers about how they might do these. And officers are right to say, if we do this, we might have to redo it with something else. But in my view, it is on the track of what we are already doing. Councillor Young, my ask about the venues is specifically about city vibrancy, city economic well-being, and to support our city safety plan. This is about filling the Opera House, which doesn't really get filled once a week. This is about filling the other place we talked about was the St. James ground floor. I think you really want that ground floor filled. Please support this amendment. This is your opportunity. So I think just bear in mind, this is not about helping artists find a place to hang out, although that is one of the drivers. This is about creating vibrancy in our whare, which are not full. We asked for this in 2021. We haven't got it yet. This is about, is a trial not a good idea? A mini trial to see what it might look like if we gave licence to help fill them. So with that, councillors, this is more about our economy than we led on. This is about our whole city vision, what's special. All of these amendments are about trying to make our creative capital sing with excitement. Please support them.
Picked up during debate that some people would like to take resolutions separately. Okay, I'm just trying to establish this here. What if we took resolution 3 to 11 together in bulk? That's all the red amendments. So, okay, which ones would you like to take separately? Do them all separately. I think it might make more sense to look at the changes first and then pass the resolution to adopt the plan. Go voting opening on resolution 3. Mana, that has passed. Voting on resolution 4. Councillor Abdurrahman. Mana, that has passed. Voting on resolution 5. Mana, that has passed. Opening voting on resolution 6. Kua mana, that has passed. Opening voting on Resolution 7. Kua mana, that has passed. Opening voting on Resolution 8. Kua mana, that has passed. Opening voting on Resolution 9. Councillor Abdurrahman. Kua mana, that has passed. Opening voting on Resolution 10. Almost there, team. Kua mana, that has passed. Opening voting on Resolution 11. Kua mana, that has passed. Now opening voting on the substantive, essentially, the 1 and 2 recommendations together. Kua mana, that has passed. Ngā mihi, I feel like I've spoken so much today to the other papers, but I want to express my deep gratitude for Stephen and Andrew and Gisela and the massive amount of work in particular that your team has done over the last 6-12 months. It's been a huge amount of mahi, so thank you. Really appreciate it. That takes us on to item 2.4, decision register. No mai, James Roberts, ki te ore te kōrero.
Kia ora koutou, can we take this as tabled as read?
Councillors, any partai before we move into debate?
Yep.
Councillor Abdurrahman.
Just following up on the Karara Park, and could you please update us on that action plan? The decision that we made regards to the Karara Park?
Sorry, is it on the register? As far as I'm aware, we're progressing it.
Any further partai? I see none. Is there a mover for the motion? Councillor Matthews, Mawa I tautoko. Deputy Mayor Finn. Any debate? No. Righto.
Yes.
Oh, Councillor Randall. Sorry, you always catch me out. Yep, Councillor Randall.
Perhaps you should look right a little more often. No, I just want to make 2 points. One is something I forgot to do earlier, but I just asked if we could table the Q&A for this meeting, which has some interesting information. And secondly, I just want to note that in terms of the description of the forward program, it's very legible, and it's been a thing that I have raised before. I'm very, very pleased that officers have sort of taken, it on board with it, and just to note it's been noted. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Randall. Any further debate? No. E nāne ki potiti e te motini, and I put the motion which has been moved and seconded.
Yes, from me. I can't find the chat.
Ko mana, thank you. Righto, colleagues, that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. Please feel free to... Oh, hold up. I believe, just one quick announcement, it was John Apanovich's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday. We will celebrate after karakia. Enuhia, ki te uru tapundui, kia wātea, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, e te ara takatū. Koia rā e rongo, whakaeria ake ki runga, kia wātea, aira kua wātea.